It's Kate.
And Oliver
Hudson.
Host of the new podcast, Sibling Revelry. That's right.
We started this show because, you know what? No one talks about siblings and that dynamic.
The siblings, they know each other better than anybody.
Yes.
You know.
Listen to Sibling Revelry on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, I'm Frances Fry.
And I'm Ann Morris.
And we are the hosts of a new TED podcast called Fixable.
We've helped leaders at some of the world's most competitive companies solve all kinds of problems.
On our show, we'll pull back the curtain and give you the type of honest, unfiltered advice we usually reserve for top executives. Give us a call and we'll help you solve the problems you're stuck on. Listen to Fixable on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Episode 230, Negotiating Medical Debt with Dr. Virgie Bright Ellington.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And I am so excited about this one. I have always wanted to talk about medical debt, but never, I am not an expert in it, and it's so hard to find an expert into it. So when Dr. Virgie reached out to us, I was elated. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm so excited.
We say we're excited about every interview, and that's not wrong. We're not lying. We are. This one is over the moon for many, many, many reasons. And we are already anticipating this is going to be a fan fave because it's something that many of us have dealt with or family members have dealt with and unsure of what to do. There's so much red tape and systems you have to be aware of. And just being equipped with knowledge can be so, so helpful. And from an expert, I just cannot wait to get into this and share this with our community.
Yeah, this is one everyone should listen to. Yes. Tell your wife, tell your kids, tell your neighbor. And
start knocking on doors, you know?
Yeah.
Spread this message.
Spread the message.
This episode is brought to us also by that old forgotten 401k. Have you ever
She's so lonely.
She's old and forgotten.
Oh, gosh.
Let's remember her and make her not forgotten anymore.
She's not dead. She's not dead.
She's still there, and she's not that old. Have you ever left a job and didn't know what to do with that 401k or similar retirement plan? Is it still sitting there, forgotten, kind of old, aging, at least aging, neglected?
Aging.
You're not alone. There are currently over 24 million kind of forgotten, quote unquote forgotten 401k accounts housing almost $1.3 trillion of assets. That's an amount of money that we really can't even fathom. Your old 401k is begging you to stop ignoring it and roll it over into an IRA. If you have no idea or time to figure out what a rollover is, never fear. Capitalize is here. Capitalize is an independent platform that helps you find and roll over an old 401k into an IRA of your choice for free. We love that word. Your old 401k doesn't know it. This service will be free forever, but you should take advantage of it while it is. So start your rollover today at frugalfriendspodcast.com/capitalize.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I had my mom do it.
I
did
Travis
it for my mom.
Yeah, I did it for Travis.
But it's not that hard. It's
works.
not because it's that hard.
It's not.
Just like, she had other things to do. So,
yeah. So if you want to queue up a few other episodes after this one, and so these are old episodes, y'all. So episode 45, negotiating tips for lowering bills, and episode 12, how to save money on healthcare. So in there, we talk about some like health insurance, healthcare sharing, and preventative care. But we don't talk about this a lot because we don't have a lot of experience negotiating medical debt. I was able to negotiate some pregnancy medical costs. And so it is so easy to do. You just have to know what to say and how to say it. And you now have to know what to look for, but it's really so overwhelming. And so Dr. Virgie Bright Ellington, she is an internal medicine physician and billing expert. She's a patient advocate. She practiced more than 20 years in primary care and psychiatric care, and she has been a health insurance executive. And so now she helps patients understand complex medical procedures, how to communicate effectively with healthcare providers, and avoid the financial devastation that comes from crushing medical bills. She's the author of the What Your Doctor Wants You to Know series, and she's a wealth of information.
What an amazing human being. And here we have her. So enough of us. Let's get to Dr. Virgie.
Dr. Virgie, welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. It is an honor and pleasure to have you on.
You know what, ladies, it is my honor and pleasure. And I've been following you guys for a few years. I've been on your listserv. I'm trying to think of how many years it's been, but I know it was like way before the pandemic. So when I saw you guys have a podcast, I'm like, hey, the world is small. This is awesome. Life is good.
So we're just fanning on each other, but mostly we are here to highlight you, Dr. Virgie, your knowledge and experience and what you have to share with our listeners today. So thanks for being here and sharing what you know.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So let's dive in. You are an expert on medical billing and medical debt. So I know the first thing people will usually get is a surprise charge on their bills. That's happened so often. How should people handle surprise charges on their medical bills?
So a surprise charge, we call surprise billing, is actually a formal description. There's an actual the term surprise bill or surprise billing refers in actuality to cases in which you have insurance and you go to get care at a facility, and maybe you had the option, it was an elective thing, and you had knee surgery had planned, or unfortunately, if you had an emergency and you go to a facility and you know that they take your insurance, when you don't have any choice of the physicians that are involved with your care. Physicians that you have no choice in choosing, like the ER doc, the anesthesiologist, the radiologist who reads the x-ray of your broken to determine if your bone is broken. If you had the elective surgery, they take tissue, they send it off. Anything that's taken from the human body, they'll send it off to pathology for a physician to look at it under the microscope to make sure it's always benign, meaning non-cancerous versus they don't see any cancer cells. Those are all folks, those are all physicians that you don't have any choice in picking. And if they are out of network, that means that they'll send you a bill for their whole full retail price and you're stuck with it. So this has been an issue because there are business models. There's private equity, there are corporations whose business model is to say, okay, we're going to hire all these docs who you have no choice in picking when you go to the hospital or you need care, and we're going to charge them full price, which is often tens and tens, and I can't explain how outrageous the numbers are when they don't take insurance. They take no insurances. That's their business model. And you go in thinking that you've done all of your research to make sure that you're in network with this facility, but they hire physicians who are not. That results in a surprise bill.
So how do we have any power over that, either before or after?
Yep. The great news is, as of January 1st of this year, a bill was passed. It's now federal law where if you have insurance and you go to an in-network provider and you are sent a bill by other physicians that are involved with your care who do not accept your insurance, they have to negotiate directly with the insurance company to work out a payment. Work out, is it going to be the in-network rate that they usually pay? Or are they going to pay a little bit of a premium? Whatever it is, the patient is out of the middle. So until now, until January 1st of this year, there were a few states that had, bills were in that state that you could not get a surprise bill. It was illegal in that state to charge patients who if they're out of network, if you charge them out of network prices. But now it's a federal law. So that's how you protect yourself. You make sure that if you've gotten a bill you go to get care and you've gotten a bill where it says, you know what, we're not in network with your provider, with your insurance rather. Well, not my problem anymore. As of January 1, 2022, you're going to put them in touch. Then they know this. The providers know this. They have to deal with your insurance directly and leave the patient out instead of having the patient holding the bag, which has been the case for eons until now.
So if we get that bill in the mail and we realize this, we've now listened to Dr. Virgie and we know a bill has passed and we're not responsible for this. Would that just be us reminding the provider of that law? And please talk to my insurance company.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Talk to my insurance company. They say, talk to my insurance company. I'm out. Mm-hmm. So, I really like to use this as an opportunity to talk about there's a reason why. This is the reason why there's only one right way to pay a medical bill. And that's because usually, unfortunately, I would say 9 times out of 10, a medical care facility will send you a bill that's not a real bill. And they do that because they know it works. We panic and we'll figure out how to pay this off. So I'm going to take you through the one right way to pay a medical bill. There's 3 steps. And in this process, Jillian, we're going to say, okay, you know what? By doing this process of the one right way of paying a medical bill, going through the 3 steps, we're not going to get caught by any tricks like surprise billing. So it's the one right way to pay a medical bill will protect you from, among other things, surprise billing. So the one thing you want to do when you get up any medical bill is to look to make sure that it's an accurate or itemized bill. And what I'm calling now a real bill. A real bill has what's called CPT codes. CPT codes are just like barcodes. When you go into a store, every product has a barcode, right? You take that product, you run it through the scanner, it'll identify, some description of the product and the price that the facility is charging for that particular product. Same thing with CPT codes. Every single medical service in the United States has a CPT code. And I won't bore you with what CPT stands for. There are people who work in the insurance company I know for years, and they can't remember what CPT stands for.
That's amazing.
And, it has a long name, common procedural terminology, which is why we don't use it. We just call it CPT codes. And I was talking to a radio host a couple of months ago, and he said, you know what? We should call it can't pay this. That's what CPT should stand for. Can't pay this.
That's amazing.
Anyway, so
yeah.
Right? So you get a medical bill and you make sure it has CPT codes at the top. You'll see CPT at the top, and under it, CPT codes are usually like a 5-digit number describing a service. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to, the first step is call your provider and get a real bill. So what I've been talking about this, and this is one of those things that's been bugging me this week. I'm realizing, these bills that we often get, that consumers, the American patient, the public gets, are just not bills. They're kind of like wishful thinking. They're like, oh, maybe they'll pay it. If we send them this with no CPT codes and it has a description and that's it, they think that it's a real bill. But it's not. So first step, always call to make sure you get a real bill, which is an itemized bill, basically fancy name for a bill with CPT codes. And that takes you to the second step. When you get that bill with CPT codes, you're going to take it and Google the codes to make sure that each of the codes describes the service that you think you got or services that you think you received during your stay or during your visit. Great. Once you get those codes, what will come up as a description. Awesome. And you're making sure that makes sense in terms of what you got, making sure you're not getting double bill, that kind of thing, or bill for something that you didn't get. Then you're going to take those codes and you're going to continue to Google, but this time you're going to Google what Medicare pays for each of those codes, for each of those services. So Medicare is federal government care, healthcare. And CMS, which stands for Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, has a standard list of things that they pay for each CPT code, right? The thing is that I consider Medicare the basic flat rate. So there are a lot of people who do this kind of work, meaning trying to help people who are struggling with medical bills, educating the American public in terms of medical financial literacy. And they say, well, okay, we look this up, but we're going to agree to pay 2 times the Medicare rate. And that takes us down to step 3. I disagree. I think start at Medicare, start at the Medicare price. That's the point where you're going to negotiate. Don't go straight to negotiation without doing the first 2 steps because you're being overcharged. Their retail rates are often 300 to 500% more than what Medicare pays. And so when I say, you know what, I start at the Medicare rate. When I say step 3, that's the number you're going to start when you call back the medical billing department or the patient accounts department of the facility and say, you know what, this is what I can afford. These are the services I got. This is what I'm able to pay. I think this is fair from my research and the care that I received. Now, some folks, like I was saying, think that 2 times the Medicare rate is a good place to start. And that's because if you call some of these facilities, you're going to get pushback. And the general pushback is, well, if everybody paid Medicare rates or paid the Medicare prices, we wouldn't be able to stay in business. We wouldn't be able to provide care to everyone. I'm not so sure about that. And even so, not my problem. Not my problem. If I have a budget, which takes me to step 3, you're going to call back the provider's office, billing department, patient accounts office, and ask for, number 1, an interest-free payment plan that fits your budget. And this is really important because people get upset when they think about how long it's going to take them to pay off a bill. They said, oh my gosh, it's going to take me 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And so what? Right? So the reason why you're going to get probably pushback when you call back the department, billing department, and say, hey, this is what I'm willing to pay. I need an interest-free payment plan. They're going to say, well, this is a $10,000 bill, and you paying us $250 a month. This is going to take us forever to pay it off. Can you do? That's just too little, and it'll take us too long to get paid. Can you do $350? No, I can only do $250. And the reason why you want to stick with that is because if you make an agreement with the care facility, it doesn't get reported to credit agencies, right? It's blind. It doesn't impact your credit report at all, which is awesome. But if you agree to any payment plan and you can't make a payment, they will automatically, really quickly, I'm surprised how fast they do it. They'll send it right to collections, to debt. They'll sell it to a debt collections for pennies on the dollar. So you may say, okay, well, why would they agree to take so little over a long period of time? And I say the reasons why you want to stick with your budget when you're calling the facility and talking about the payment plan that you need is because, as they say, a little bit of something is better than all of nothing, right? Mm-hmm. They know it's cheaper to take it, instead of having to chase you potentially or have to sell it if they have to chase you long enough for pennies on the dollar, to a collections agency. So those are the 3 steps for the one right way to pay a medical bill.
That's so helpful. And at the end of the day, you have already gone through the first 2 steps where you are equipped with knowledge. You've been able to get rid of any bills or itemized line pieces that you are not actually obligated to pay. You've lowered the rate. And then if it is still too much for you to be able to pay outright, that interest-free portion. Of course, none of us like having those payments, but if it's interest-free, that makes a big difference, especially as it concerns healthcare, things that we need to stay alive. We're not just talking about some luxury item.
Exactly. It's not consumer debt.
Yeah.
And, the current administration is realizing, hey, you know what? We need to treat it as such. Medical debt, medical bills are not a choice. Student loans, at the end of the day, is a choice. But, none of us asked to get here, right? None of us asked to be born. And once we get here, we're living creatures and we get sick. Things happen. We have accidents. And so it's not consumer debt. And I'm glad that the administration is trying to teach folks that, hey, we need to treat medical bills differently than consumer bills. Medical debt different than consumer debt.
Well, and it carries so much anxiety because not only are you managing physical health problems, but also financial difficulties too, depending on the amount of money that's owed and whether or not insurance is covering it or you're able to pay. And so I think we've got a couple of layers here of just receiving a bill that might be overwhelming that we can't really pay, but then that can stack up to medical debt as you're describing here. And I know even before we got on, you were even beginning to talk about preventative measures. So talking about preventative, but as well as maybe even reactive, because sometimes we find ourselves there. What are some of your tips when we are deep into some medical debt? What can be done?
One of the things, I like to, remind folks about is that it's not your fault. And you think that, oh my gosh, it's scary, it's complicated, I'm screwed. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to declare bankruptcy. I can't pay this. And many people have. So the first thing I tell folks is that it's not your fault. And yes, there are things you can do. So yes, go through and let me just say one more thing. The reason why we also panic is because, and often panic, in addition to all of this, is that this happens to us when we're at our most vulnerable, when we're sick, in pain, scared, afraid, unable to work, whether we have insurance or not. Most of us get our insurance through our employers. If we miss enough work because of the illness or the accident, we'll lose our job and therefore our insurance. So there's just many reasons why folks in this country get taken advantage of by the system, this, healthcare industry in our country, for-profit healthcare industry in our country. So what I tell people, number one, is to step back. And if you're able to pull all of your bills, don't ignore the bills. If you can be ahead of it and call them first, the billing department first, as I explained, and go back and ask for real bills. And a real bill has a CPT code. The other thing I tell folks is to make sure that you're not confusing a real bill with, because you're not confusing a real bill with, if you have insurance, an explanation of benefits or an EOB. And I've gotten multiple calls and examples of where folks will say, I got this bill from my insurance company. No, you're not going to get a bill from your insurance company. What you received is a notice of what they paid and or what they're saying they're not going to pay and what you're going to be responsible for. And you're going to have to deal with the provider yourself. So I make sure that I ask folks to pull out anything that says, usually it'll say it right across on the front page and subsequent pages, this is not a bill. Those are your EOBs, your explanation of benefits. So pull that out and then pull out the actual bills that don't have that's at the top, that's not from your insurance company if you have insurance, and call the provider, ask for the real bill with CPT codes. And then if it's less than, I tell people this all the time, if it's less than 6 months out from the services that you received, you can still go back and apply for financial assistance. And in some cases, even Medicaid, depending on the state that you're in, you can go back and apply for Medicaid if your income is low enough for bills that are 6 months, less than 6 months old. So that's one option. Often we're kind of in between that. We're not at the point where we have to say, okay, you know what, I have zero income. I need to consider applying for Medicaid. Most of us are in the position where we've gone to a healthcare facility that is nonprofit. The majority of healthcare facilities, hospital medical systems in this country are nonprofit. And I stopped calling it nonprofit. I call it tax exempt. because they really have a lot of surplus. Let's put it that way. 65%
Profitable nonprofits.
Right? Exactly. Right. So 65% of hospitals in the United States are tax exempt, AKA nonprofit. And in exchange for by federal law, for tax exempt nonprofit status, they provide sliding scale income-based discounts to the public and the community that they serve. So what this means is many bills that you get, if you just go to them and say, look, call up the office and say, look, this is the research. I got the real bill with CPT codes. I've researched it. This is what I can afford to pay and for how long. You call them up and say, yeah, this is what I can do. You'd be surprised that although by law, they're supposed to post it publicly, nonprofit facilities, that of what the process is to apply for financial aid. And a lot of people don't like that term, financial aid, but they think of it as charity care. It's different euphemisms, right? Charity care, financial assistance, financial aid, it's all income-based discounts. And if you'd be surprised at the high income you can have. If your bill is high enough, you may able to get it completely wiped off just based on your income. I've seen a bill as little as, I think it was like $13,000. I don't mean little, but compared to their income, the person had like $150,000 gross income that they showed on, you're going to be asked to show documents and things. And based on their income and the bill was so large in relationship to their income, the whole bill was wiped away.
Wow.
Now, if you had not been aware that you have rights as if you went to a nonprofit facility, tax exempt facility, you have options. So just because the majority of healthcare facilities in our country are nonprofit, 65% of them, this is an option. Now, someone brought something to my attention. They say that even for-profit facilities have financial assistance programs. If you don't ask, you don't get, right? So always ask.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing. And of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic. oracle.com/strategic.
Discover the heartwarming and hilarious world of sibling connections on Sibling Revelry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson.
You might be asking yourself, what is sibling revelry?
Yeah, well, we just made it up.
They'll have some laughs and maybe inspire some people along the way with universal tales of what it's like to grow up with brothers and sisters.
We're full-blood siblings, the only full-blood sibling.
In our family. Well, not in the world.
No, in the whole world. That's just it. Like no one.
Dive into family tales and explore the human mind with guests like Joel and Benji Madden.
And it's fun because we've decided to open it up, to really like all kinds of different siblings. And it's going to be an awesome season.
It's more than a podcast. It's a celebration of the ties that bind us. Listen to Sibling Revelry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
a few things are standing out to me in what you're describing here. First of all, knowing what you can pay. Of course, once you've realized what you are actually responsible for, because sometimes they might charge you for things you're not responsible for. But then once you figure out this is what I actually owe, going to them with a number, which is classic negotiation tip for any type of thing that we're trying to negotiate, having that number, not just going and saying, I don't know, what can you do? And then going from there, but also recognizing that this is available to us and there is no shame in pushing for lower rates because you might not actually have to pay that high rate. And why would you if you're not able to, if the organization, the company, the hospital has ability to give it to you at a discounted rate? I think the thing that stands out to me is just the time and energy that all of this takes, the know-how of going through the paperwork, of finding the phone numbers, of sitting on hold, of doing the research. And it's worth it. And we've seen that it's worth it. But especially when you might be going through a time that is physically demanding or exhausting and you've got various medical concerns, I think it's a big deal. And I don't know if there's much that can be said or a magic wand that we can wave over that, but community, hopefully someone to sit by your side as you're going through all this paperwork. But yeah, there's a couple of layers here.
Yeah. The most difficult about this is that this happens to us. This is done to us, not by accident, just because they know they can get away with it, frankly. And in addition, they know they can get away with it more likely because it's when we're at our most vulnerable. You know, we're sick, we're tired, we're scared, we're in pain, we're grieving, you know, and why do they do it? Well, it works. It works. I was talking actually with my husband, who's a 35-year law enforcement veteran. And, you know, we talk about, you know, laws, federal laws versus state laws, that kind of thing. And I said to him, I said, you know what? I've been going through a lot of medical bill mistakes and, you know, going through, you know, looking at bills and saying, well, this is a mistake. And if you can imagine, 80 to 90% of every medical bill and generated in this country has mistakes. And if you can imagine, they're not going to be in the favor of the patient, right? They're going to be in the favor of the provider and or the insurance company. I was talking to him and I said, you know, it just hit me. Why should consumers, patients, be given bills that don't have CPT codes if there is zero insurance company in this country that would ever even consider a bill submitted from the provider that doesn't have CPT codes? Then why do they generate them and send them to the patient? Why do they generate two different kinds of bills? One that's not a real bill. I call it a summary bill. Sometimes I'll call it a detailed summary bill. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have CPT codes. It's not a real bill. Why generate something separate that you just send the patients if it's not the same thing that you send the insurance companies? The insurance companies, you always send if you want to get paid as a provider, you're going to send the insurance companies bills with CPT codes, right? So why do we generate? Why do providers, healthcare facilities generate bills that have no CPT codes to patients? Because it works. And because by law, there's no law requiring them to do it. And I thought, you know what, there needs to be a federal law to have the same bill that is sent to insurance companies sent to the patient, just so there's no confusion, right?
Yeah.
And my husband's like, oh, good luck with that, Virgie. You know, the political climate. He says, you may be able to do it state by state. He says, you can start somewhere. But I'm like,
I love that these are the conversations you're having at home with your husband. He's like, go for it.
Conversation for another day.
Go ahead and try it.
Years down the road, you know, it's something else to work on in my spare time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it is smart to realize these things because as consumers, we don't see a ton of bills. Like if you don't work in the healthcare industry, you have no idea, you know, what CPT codes are or the huge book full of CPT codes. Like there's so many of them.
There's
so specific.
Books. Exactly. There's more than 300,000 CPT codes and you don't have to remember, you don't have to know any of them. You just have to know where to find it. You know, it's not, how does it go? It's not what you know, it's, who you know, right? Well, Dr. Google. You'll take a CPT code and you'll Google it. You don't need to remember, you don't need to memorize any of them. So I use the analogy, Jen, of going to a car mechanic, right? So your car doesn't work, it's not doing something it's supposed to do. You take it to the mechanic. Well, you don't have to know fancy mechanic words and how the car runs and that kind of thing to know, number one, what you're able to pay for it, right? You don't need to know fancy medical words and CPT codes. You don't have to have them memorized and know what they are to be able to understand what fits in your budget when you have to pay for your care.
I know. I can go to a car dealership and be like, I can't afford a car that's more than $20,000. And they will do, they will tell me what I need to compromise on to stay in my budget. Exactly. And it's just not the same with healthcare.
Exactly. That's, Jen, that's the exact analogy I use. I say, you know what? When you go to a car dealership, we know personal financial literacy. We know that if you're buying a new car or old car, you are expected to negotiate. There's just basic things you're supposed to know. And you don't think that, well, I don't know anything about how cars work. I don't know any fancy car terms, but I know that I want like a big car with a big engine. So I know I want a V8. You don't have to know how the V8 works and all the little fancy things connected to it to know how much you can afford to pay to stay in your budget, to stay in your spending plan for you and your family.
And some of us just want good cup holders. That's all I need.
Hey, you know what? I didn't want to, but I had to buy a new car. My baby, my favorite Bella, was diagnosed with a terminal disease, so I had to let her go. So I had to get a replacement. I call her Bella Jr. So when I was checking out Bella Jr. at the dealership, the guy was like, hey, and showing me all the features, everything. He says, and it has a sunglass holder for your sunglasses. I was like, sold, done. I kept playing with the sunglass holder.
The little things.
It's the little things. I'm with you.
Yes.
I'm with you, Jillian.
Yes. So say somebody has a medical debt it's been longer than 6 months and, they've already sent it off to collections. What is a person's move then? Should they, it's on their credit report. How do they get it off their credit report? How do they deal with it? What's the move there?
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the old number. So as of July 1st, as of last week, it's less than a week old. Wow. The 3 credit reporting agencies have to wipe off, remove, and not report any medical bill or debt that's been paid off that's already in collections, that was in collections. They can't report it anymore. Once you pay it off, it doesn't stay on for 7 years like other consumer debt. It gets wiped off as soon as you pay it off. The other thing is that the facilities have to wait now 12 months instead of 6 months before reporting it to collections or selling it to collections. Oh, wow. So that's awesome news. I just wanted to remind us of, this is something that's new.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Good stuff, right?
Yeah.
So this next thing, to answer your question, Jen, refers to prior to any bills that came up before July 1, 2022, before last week. So what you would do is you really want to call and make sure that you owe that. Let me back up. If they call you, when they call you, say, hey, you owe this, it's in collections, you want to make sure you really owe it. So they have to prove by law. There's a federal law that's been in effect since the late 70s. It's called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, that says that if you get called by a debt collector, they have to send you documentation that you signed for the service or product. So you're going to have to go just OG on them, just old school, and say, hey, look, I don't know anything about that. You need to send that to me in writing. Show me my signature where I agreed to pay for this, that I received the service. Show me that. So if they don't show you that, they don't send it to you in writing, you don't owe it. The second thing is, okay, so let's say they send it to you and you owe it. There are credit repair agencies that say, you know what, you're better off just working with, let me back up. There are consumer journalists and folks that, have experience in doing this work in consumer debt to say, you know what, instead of paying it off with the debt collector, just work with a credit repair service business company, because your credit has already been dinged. Mm-hmm. So they suggest, you know what, maybe you don't even want to pay it off because it's already hit your report, your credit report, and dinged your credit number, your FICO score. So some people suggest doing that. Others say, you know what, work out a payment plan, negotiate with them. And, they've bought it for pennies. So, they're going to get a little bit of something. And again, a little bit of something is better than nothing. If you found out you went through the steps, you found out you did owe it, you really, if you can, this is more difficult to do, to get the real bill with your signature with CPT codes. That's ideal. But if they have a signature from you and it looks like, okay, yes, this documentation I signed for these medical, these care services, if you can, I go back to step 3, applying the 3 steps again. If they can't give you CPT codes, then, with the documentation that they have, that you think that you really do owe, you receive those services, take it down. Step 2, what the services you receive, what prices Medicare pays for it, or you can go up to 2 times Medicare rate if you're so inclined to start there with your step 3 negotiation. Say, okay, I'm able to do this interest-free because you've already dinged my credit. Interest-free payment plan, and it doesn't matter how long it takes you. Stay in your budget. Don't let them wipe out your. Frankly, Americans we love our nurses and we appreciate our docs. They can save our lives and we're grateful. But just because the facility and or the provider saved your life doesn't mean that you should destroy your financial life and give up your life to pay them, right? So don't give up don't compromise or risk your ability to get to work, the roof over your head. So make sure you can make your mortgage, you have a budget, your spending plan that includes your budget, your mortgage or your rent, your car payment, your ability to get back and forth to work. Medical bills come last, frankly. You've got to make sure that you stay with your ability to stay healthy. And if you're financially stressed, you're not going to stay healthy. So protect your ability to keep a roof over your head, your ability to get to and from work, pay those bills first, and then work out something that you can cover those, that medical debt collection is saying that you owe. But some people say, if it's already gone to collections, it's already dinged your credit score, consider that. I'm not an expert in this and I'm not suggesting one or another, but some folks say once it's gone to debt collectors, consider working with a credit repair agency or a business company.
Definitely. If you're going to go that route, make sure it's a not-for-profit company.
Yeah. Oh, big deal. Thank you for bringing that up. That's important.
Yeah. So I've heard and I've experienced getting a pay in full discount. Do you recommend the interest-free payment plan over possibly getting a pay in full discount for either a bill or a debt?
It's up to you. Once only after you've gone through the 3 steps. If you've done the first 2 steps, sure. Whatever works for you. So okay, I've done the 3 steps. First step, I got the CPT codes describing the services that I received. Number 2, I took those codes and found out what Medicare pays for those services. And so this is a fair price. So you go to 3. Okay, this is what I'm willing to pay. So let's say that I got sent a bill, and this is not unusual. You got sent a bill for $10,000 and you worked out the numbers, did the 3 steps, the first 2 steps, and you Googled, actually, Medicare pays, $3,000 for these services. Well, you call them back and you say, you know what? If I pay you in full $3,000, will you take it? This is what Medicare pays. Will you take it? If you don't ask, you don't get. Mm-hmm. And then if you believe that that's what you've done the research, meaning you Googled the CPT codes and what Medicare pays for them, and you believe that the actual fair number is $3,000, say, look, this is all I'm willing to pay, take it or leave it. And, you'll give me a 70% discount if I pay you in full now.
Yeah. For someone at that step 2 of comparing to Medicare prices, where can they go to find that information? To go back to the car illustration, is there like a healthcare blue book?
Actually, there is a healthcare blue book. You can start there, but the healthcare blue book looks at the prices that are paid or charged and paid in that particular region where you live. Mm-hmm. Medicare does a little bit of tweaking based on regions, but not a whole lot. So I usually tell people to go to healthcare.gov.
Okay.
Is the big one where I tell people they can start their search for the actual prices that Medicare pays for certain services, CPT codes, services.
Yeah, so that's where having that code comes in handy.
You need to have a code. That's why step 1, call them. The first step is easy, just a phone call. Yeah, you're going to be on hold. While you're in front of the TV, just put the TV on mute and a commercial and call. And then watch. And then when they pick up, 10 minutes later, 15, 20 minutes later, however long it is, you can put your TV on mute and talk to them and say, I need a real bill of CPT codes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know what else I need every week? It's on the same level as this conversation.
The bill of the week.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the bill of the week.
Dr. Virgie, every week we invite our listeners and our guests to share with us their bill of the week. And we, as a billing expert, we are very excited to hear what your bill is for the week.
So my bill, actually, I talk about it in my book, How to Crush Medical Debt, or I call it just Crush Medical Debt, what your doctor wants you to crush medical debt. And I talk about it because it is a subset, a great example of what we talked about at the beginning of our conversation, which is surprise bills. So surprise bills, as I said, is when you go to an in-network provider or hospital facility, but they have out-of-network docs taking care of you, providing the service. Okay. So that's a subset of balance billing. Balance billing is when you go to an in-network provider, meaning they accept your insurance, and they send you a bill for the what I call MRSP, right? As we were talking about cars, full manufacturer retail sticker price. They send you a bill for the balance between what their retail, their full price. I laugh so I don't cry, really. And they send you a bill the provider sends you a bill for their full price, even though they're a network with your provider. So let's say that, just to keep the math simple, say that I go get care and the insurance pays $10 for this particular CPT code, right? This particular service. But the provider's full price is $100. So instead of saying, oh, we're a network, we've agreed to accept whatever they pay for their members as payment in full, we accept that $10 and it is what it is, right? They send you a bill for the balance, which is $90, right? That is balance billing. So the reason why that's important is, and we talked about the surprise billing is a type of balance billing. The reason why that's important is because we can imagine if it's just, $100 or $200, never put just in front of money, right? If it's just, $100 or $200, okay, you're not going to be happy about it. But if it's thousands of dollars for the services, that'll put you in bankruptcy land, debt land really quick, right? So anyway, so my medical bill mistake of the week is I went to a hospital for emergency surgery and I got a balance bill. They tried to balance bill me. They said I always laugh. I laugh so I don't cry. They sent me a bill 6 months later that had one CPT code and the rest was like general, so it wasn't a real bill because it only had like one CPT code describing, an inpatient stay, surgery, all this stuff, right? So I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is going to be entertaining for me. So they sent me a bill for $300 that said, well, our charges for your surgery and all this and the inpatient stay is $351,000. But they put a second line in that said, this is quote unquote insurance adjustments / payments of like $260,000 or something. And then it says third line, patient responsibility. And up at the top, same number, patient due, within like 30 days or something, low price of like almost $90,000, right? Oh my gosh.
So manageable, right? We just help you out.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I have to say, I was laughing because they didn't realize, they're putting one over on the author of What Your Doctor Wants You to Know to Crush Medical Debt, right?
Mm-hmm.
The author of Crush Medical Debt. And I was cracking up and I was working from home that day and I had to just let it out. I had to talk to someone. So I call my best friend and I tell her the story. I said, I just got a balance bill for $90,000 from this facility that is in network with my insurance. And I'm telling her the story and just cracking up laughing. And she finally says, Virgie, you're the only person I know who laughs when everybody else would be curled up in the fetal position in the corner crying. And, I tell this story because it is a perfect example of why we have to educate ourselves. We have to have medical financial literacy, just basic 3 steps, and it'll save you literally sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. If I'd gone back and applied the 3 steps, I would have called the provider, asked for real bill with CPT codes for everything and not just like, I think they gave me a CPT code for like the tissue they took during my surgery and sent it to the lab. They sent me a CPT code. They broke it out with OR services and stay, $350,000 and 900, and then CPT code for lab service, pathology service, $44.
That's
I was just like, hilarious.
That is rich.
Hilarious.
That is rich.
So yeah, if I'd applied, all 3 steps to that, I would have gotten a real bill. And then I would have figured out that, hey, when I've gotten the EOB for my insurance, that the number they were actually charging me, that $90,000, was the same number that they sent the insurance company to pay. The insurance company only paid $90,000, probably less. But, they figured like 9 times out of 10, it works.
Wow.
And they were I was sent a bill for $90,000 that I didn't owe. And they sent the same bill to my insurance company.
So you didn't actually owe any of that?
No, I owed nothing. So yeah, that's a great question. And so a year later, I was talking to my best friend again about something. And I said, well, yeah, that's why, I call myself the lady that got out of paying the $90,000 medical bill, and you can too. Let me show you how. And she says, well, Virgie, by the way, she says, you didn't pay that, right? I was like, of course not. I told you I wasn't going to pay that. And she says, well, are you sure? Like it didn't get sent to collections? Have you checked your credit report, your credit number, your FICO score? And I'm like, who are you talking to? Like, what? I was like, you're talking to the author of Crush Medical Debt, right? I said, dude, I just refinanced my mortgage last month. My credit score My FICO score they said it went down from the month prior. It was now 841. And I was like, what? I mean, I missed the snapshot. I got a screenshot and sent it to her. But apparently the month prior, it was 850. So I said, they didn't say it's that's what balance billing is. It is, she's a lawyer. She won't let me use the word contract fraud, but let's say it is, it is not in contract.
Mm-hmm.
When they send you a balance bill, the provider send a balance bill to members of insurance companies who they contracted with to accept their insurance. Sending a balance bill is breach of contract.
Yeah. I mean, recognizing that what is happening here with medical billing is not always ethical. And sometimes we think what's illegal is the same thing as unethical, and it's not the same thing.
Thank you so much for saying that. And I tell folks this all the time, Jillian. It's like, you know what? These insurance companies and the providers know it's immoral and unethical, but they also know it's not illegal.
And they spend a lot of money every year making sure it never becomes illegal. It's your money they're spending.
Exactly. Lobbyists, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Yes, ma'am. Jen, you hit it right on the head.
Thanks to Dr. Virgie, we are one step closer to being educated and armed with knowledge. And we don't have to pay that $90,000 medical bill. If you all listening have a similar story to getting out of a $90,000 bill, I mean, definitely call us. frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill. But if it's anything, if it's a wrong bill, if it's a double bill that you like, whatever it's
a right bill,
leave us your bill, frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill.
Discover the heartwarming and hilarious world of sibling connections on Sibling Revelry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson.
You might be asking yourself, what is sibling revelry?
Yeah, well, we just made it up.
They'll have some laughs and maybe inspire some people along the way with universal tales of what it's like to grow up with brothers and sisters.
We're full-blood siblings, the only full-blood sibling
in our family. Well, not in the world. I mean,
no, in the whole world. That's just it. Like no one.
Dive into family tales and explore the human mind with guests like Joel and Benji Madden.
And it's fun because we've decided to open it up, to really like all kinds of different siblings. And it's going to be an awesome season.
It's more than a podcast. It's a celebration of the ties that bind us. Listen to Sibling Revelry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
From the studio who brought you the #1 podcast, The Piketon Massacre, this is Murder 101.
A group of high school students started a project to research a string of unsolved murders.
Those murders happened in the mid-1980s.
He's out there doing stuff. He just didn't stop.
Everything that the students predicted through their profile turned out to be accurate.
Redhead killer profile. Male, Caucasian, 5'9" to 6'2", 180 to 270 pounds. Unstable home, absent father and a domineering mother. Right-handed, IQ above 100, most likely heterosexual.
There is no profile of this killer except for the ones the students created.
Just because some of these women no longer have people to speak for them does not mean that they deserve to not be spoken for.
What if this guy's still alive? Like, what if he comes after us?
I said, are you going to kill me? And he said, yes.
Listen to Murder 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Now it's time for the lightning round.
The lightning round. So we are playing, this is a little bit of wait, don't tell me style. We're talking about negotiating medical bills and debt. For the lightning round, we want to know, what's your best negotiation experience in general? It can be medically related, but it doesn't have to be. So Dr. Virgie, we will let you go first. What was your best negotiation?
My best negotiation is probably, and this has so nothing to do with medical bills, because I just described my best negotiation saying, no, I'm not paying any of it. Yeah, this is very funny. This will be a great story for my book. But no, you're not getting a dime because you don't owe it. Nice try, but no cigars, my brother used to say. Yes. But probably my best negotiation is being at a tag sale, a yard sale, and they were giving away or selling a plant or something. And I was just talking with them and gave them, a beautiful smile. And they just said, "Hey, just take it." I was willing to pay $25. I would have paid whatever. It was a gorgeous little plant, kind of, like a small tree kind of thing. And they're like, "Oh, you know what? You've been here before." They had a sale, prior, a couple months prior, and I bought something. They were like, "You know what? Just take it."
Dr. Virgie, I don't know if that's negotiating. I think that just might be the being beautiful discount that you got.
Yeah, that's
I don't know
fair.
that you had to put in much work for that.
I would, if I could smile and get a discount, that would be my favorite.
If I had my old smile, the 12-year-old Virgie smile that wasn't so beautiful, then I'd have to come up with another negotiation. I think just being kind. So
there you go.
Just
no negotiation necessary.
Being kind and talking with them and creating relationships. So that's my best negotiation
a fantastic negotiation tip is be kind and be friendly.
Sometimes it doesn't even need to get to the combative stage. You just flash a smile and walk home with a free plant.
Yeah.
So my husband says that. He says, when you're at tag sales and yard sales and that kind of thing, bundle it. Well, I bought something already. Can you throw in this? Or, okay, well, how much is this? And you already have a couple of things in your hand. And we just did this past weekend. And he says, well, will you do, I think it was like she wanted $3 or $5 or something, the third item, and he already had 2 items in his hand that he hadn't asked her about the prices for. And he says, well, will you take $10 for all 3? It's just like, yeah. So that's my negotiation tip. Be kind, relationships, and bundle.
What about for you, Jen? You love negotiating.
Yes. I will say my biggest one has a little bit to do with relationships, also slightly stalking. You be the judge. It was our first house, and I wanted that thing so bad. And our realtor at the time very much helped us negotiate. But when we got under contract, they still had an open house. And I went to the open house and I stalked it and just made sure that nobody else wanted it. And I had talked with the flippers who were also the sellers, and just found things we had in common. One of them had went to school with my old boss, good old Greg. So I just made sure that once the negotiation was done, that I really had it on lock. That was my favorite negotiation experience. And it ended up being, well, we had no money at the time. We were being kind of forced out of our rental, so we had saved nothing. So we had to figure out how to get the house with little to no money.
I mean, that's great when your best negotiation is on your biggest asset, your biggest expense.
Yeah. Yeah. And we thought we paid more, but we actually made out really good being 2 kids in their 20s getting this fully flipped house. So that was my favorite.
That's awesome.
My favorite negotiation experience of Travis's, and this is really the best story, is that Travis sat on the phone with Sprint for 6 hours one time to end up with 2 free iPhones. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
That was money. I was time well spent for the money that was saved.
Right. But who wants to sit on a phone for 6 hours?
Yeah, but think about it as an hourly rate. How much are those 2 phones worth? And divide 6 into, what is he? So think about his job, what he gets paid, break it down, divide it up, his annual salary, divide it monthly, then you can divide it into his hourly rate, right? And then, take that number, compare it to 2 iPhones together, at least $700. This doesn't, to make the math easy, $600. Mm-hmm. So $600 he saved, right? Or got product services worth $600 over 6 hours. That was $100. He made $100 an hour.
Yeah. Yep. So it's crazy. And he wouldn't want to do it again. But it's a story probably I tell the most about negotiating bills and stuff. Because he just, I got home, he was on the phone. I left for a girls' night and came back. He was still on the phone. It was an early girls' night. Yeah. It was mom's
Clearly,
night.
I wasn't with you on that girls' night.
No. So yeah, it was, that's the best negotiation experience. It just wasn't my experience.
Wow.
You learned from it.
Jill?
You learned at the knee of the master. That's awesome.
I do learn from the master.
This was something for both Eric and I. We were living in 170 square feet, a tiny little trailer camper, and working from home, like working remotely. So you can imagine what that looked like for both of us to be working in 170 square feet. So we needed an office space. So we were looking at rentals and ended up finding this amazing renovated barn at a very reasonable rate for us to be able to work there. Well, it was also on lots of acreage, and it looked like a perfect place to also park our RV. So we negotiated for them to allow us to park our RV on the property, use the barn, the renovated barn, for our co-working space for the same price that they were hoping to get out of renting out the space. Just like, will you let us also live there at no cost? And they did. And you know what, Dr. Virgie, it might have been some extra smiles that got us that one.
Because be a long-term relationship if we're renting your office space. So why don't you throw in a place for us to live too? There you go.
Yeah.
Bundling.
Yes, it was bundling. And really, they needed someone really specific to be able to rent because they had young kids who were playing in the driveway. So they didn't want a company renting who was in and out of the driveway a lot. We were really quiet. We kept to ourselves. It's what allowed us to be able to afford the office space and still live in the trailer. So that was probably our best negotiation. Yeah, we'll rent this space from you. Can we also live here in our RV right next door for no extra cost? They were awesome. Became friends, which was great. So.
Oh, I love it. I love these stories. Dr. Virgie, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people get more from you and get your fantastic book?
You can go to crushmedicaldebt.com, and on Thursdays on voiceamerica.com at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. You can find me at the Ask a Doctor What Your Doctor Wants You to Know with Dr. Virgie show.
Awesome. Yes. And definitely check out your book, Crush Medical Debt. It's available on Amazon, and it's going to help so many people really escape this crushing medical debt. So thank you again, Dr. Virgie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun talking with you ladies. I really appreciate all that you guys do.
Likewise, Dr. Virgie. Thanks for being here.
Oh, that was, I think we were both taking notes during that episode.
And sometimes I take notes for the show notes, and sometimes I take notes just for myself. And that was taking notes just for myself kind of episode. I have a handful of takeaways from this. I mean, her 3 steps. And I think that is the biggest takeaway, just to remember the CPT codes, the looking up the Medicare rate, the calling and negotiating, and then getting on an interest-free payment plan if I can't pay it all in full. I mean, that in and of itself, that's just gold that I know I am going to need that information. So
absolutely.
Bookmark
if you don't
this
need it
episode.
now, you will need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Send it to your friends. Send it to your family. This is going to be a really important episode because if you don't need it now, you'll need it in the future.
Yeah. And I love what she didn't highlight this a ton in the episode. I know we talked about it before we press record, but being proactive about it too. If we're listening in our 20s, 30s, even 40s and in good health, sometimes we don't think about this, and we may not have insurance, or we have insurance with a very, very high deductible. And so just considering taking a look at that now, even if the topic of medical debt isn't relevant to you now, making sure that you've got the insurance and good insurance and putting money aside for some of those medical concerns so that you can be proactive rather than reactive. Certainly glad to help when we are in those situations of medical debt. But if we're not, then let's take the time now to put things in place so that that won't become a crushing circumstance for us in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you so much for listening. Many of you know we have a private community where we do monthly money challenges and have accountability groups. And we want to congratulate one of our members for a big win. This one's from Corey K. And this was in reference to our mindset makeover challenge we did in July. And she says, I've gotten through 8 of the journaling prompts as of right now, and I noticed how much of a fixed mindset I had about money and the opportunity to earn it. These prompts so far have opened my mind to more things about how I got to a fixed mindset about money, and they've helped turn it around to a new perspective, and I reflect on my gratitude for different situations. I have loved reflecting on the things I have learned and quote unquote failed. Moving forward, I will be more intentional and more upfront with my gratitude for myself and others.
Congratulations, Corey. You are just ripping through those questions in that challenge. Yes. That was so fun to see.
Yeah. So thank you for listening. If you want to check out our monthly challenge community, head to frugalfriendspodcast.com/club to see what challenge we have coming up next.
See you next week or whenever the next time is that you listen to this, because we coming out 2 times a week now. Dose. Tuesday and Friday. See you Tuesday and Friday. Bye.
Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani.
Jen, this has nothing to do with medical debt, but I am proud of myself because it just happened and it's relevant. Eric and I are going to a wedding this weekend, and he needed a new suit because the one that he had for the last 10 years no longer fits him. You know, it shrunk.
Oh,
he didn't get bigger. It shrunk.
He said it shrunk. Yeah. I believe him.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I don't have a lot of fancy clothes. I wear a lot of dresses, but they are just your classic summer dress. Mm-hmm. Usually they work for an outdoor backyard wedding, which I do find myself at a decent amount.
Yeah, you know too many dating people.
And yet I did not get a new dress. He was even saying, you might want to consider getting a new dress. I'm like, no, there is something in my closet. There is just something in my closet. I'm going to make something in my closet work. No one's going to care, really. No one's going to notice that much. Even if I probably will end up wearing a dress or a skirt-shirt combo that I wore to another wedding that this same bride and groom were at. So, but you know what? It's their wedding day. They're not going to notice that I'm wearing the same thing I wore to another mutual friend's wedding. And you know, it's not the fanciest thing, and it's a rewear, but I have completely flipped the script from I have nothing to wear and I need to buy something new, or I want to buy something new, to I do have something to wear because I've been to 5 other weddings this year and I found something in my closet, so I'll find something in my closet again.
Yeah.
And I am. So there you go. There's the tie into the mindset challenge.
And what have you ever remembered?
My husband telling me I should go get a new dress, I was like, no, I've got something in my closet. I got something to wear.
When have you ever remembered what anyone wore to a wedding ever? Even the bride. Sometimes I don't remember what the dress looks like.
I have. I have remembered. I'm not going to lie. So it's usually, though, when someone looks stunning and it stands out to me. And
we'll just never look stunning and no one will remember.
Yeah, well, attraction is a spectrum. And when I notice someone wearing something that is particularly lovely, it stands out to me. But I'm not going to be mad if I see them wearing it again.
You're going to be delighted.
Exactly. So it's happening. I'm taking something in my closet and I'm stuck with it, whether I like it or not.
You get to wear it.
I get
You're
to
not
wear.
stuck with it. You get to wear it.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, I don't have time to even now go to the store. So I have to find something in my closet, and I will, because I have before.
I believe in you.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Discover the heartwarming and hilarious world of sibling connections on Sibling Revelry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson. Dive into family tales, explore the human mind, and laugh with guests like Joel and Benji Madden. It's more than a podcast. It's a celebration of the ties that bind us.
And it's fun because we've decided to open it up to really like all kinds of different siblings. And it's going to be an awesome season.
Listen to Sibling Revelry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Frances Fry.
And I'm Ann Morris.
And we are the hosts of a new TED podcast called Fixable.
We've helped leaders at some of the world's most competitive companies solve all kinds of problems.
On our show, we'll pull back the curtain and give you the type of honest, unfiltered advice we usually reserve for top executives. Give us a call and we'll help you solve the problems you're stuck on. Listen to Fixable on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.